Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast. My name is April Tribe Juke, and I'm here tonight with Miss Sally Livingston. And tonight we're going to be sharing a frank conversation about her book. And you can see it a little bit off the side of her shoulder. But before we get into anything, we'd love to welcome everyone here. And when you come up, just go ahead and share where you're from, share where you are listening from. Tonight I am broadcasting from Kyle, Texas. And Sally, where are you sharing your broadcast tonight from?
I am coming from Charlotte, North Carolina, in my kitchen.
Excellent. In the kitchen. That's great. Where great things happen. Looks like we've got a few people popping up here and giving some hearts. That's fantastic.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It looks like we have our first comment of the night. Oh, it's John. Wonderful.
Oh.
Thank you, John. Two
Yay,
amazing
John.
ladies. Thanks, John, for popping in here tonight. So it looks like he is from Overland Park, Kansas, Texas, North Carolina. Looks like we've got this section covered. Let's see. Let's have that shout outs over there. Alaska, California.
Let's get some Florida people. My home state, Florida.
Come on, Florida. Hey, John. It is so good to see you. John Michael. Great, amazing, amazing man. Thank you so much for popping in here tonight. Looks like a few more are here. So, Sally, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and why you wrote this book?
I think, like I said, I'm from Miami, Florida, and I've been in Charlotte for about a year. I have been a marriage and family therapist for 28 some years. I hate to all say that because it makes me feel really old. But I worked in church. I've worked in private practice, and about 5 years ago, God told me, kind of said, hey, let's get going. I've got a new place for you to go, something new for you to do. I was perfectly happy where I was, I thought, but we said yes and moved on. And that's when the birth of the book happened, because I was at a different place without kind of all of the things that I used to do and used to be. He kind of freed me from that and asked me to start putting some things down as he downloaded them to me. And so Get Over It was a thought that I had sitting in church. And the question came, if you were to start doing marriage seminars, because now you're not working in a church, having a day-to-day job, what's next for you? So if you were to start to do marriage seminars, what would the title be? Those three words popped right into my head. Get over it, as I would like to say to a lot of couples, and stay married, get over it, and be happy, get over it, and get unstuck, basically. But though those words sounded a little bit harsh in the way that they come across, I wanted to take it and make a positive connotation to it, to say that, yeah, you actually can get over the things that have you stuck. And in working with clients for so long, I've, seen the cycle, and it just the repetitive, I call it the stuck cycle: guilt, shame, pain. I want to get over it. I just don't know how. And this 4-step process seemed to really help the clients get there in a new way. So just kind of an exciting journey it's been for me over the past. It took 5 years to get it out. But here it is. And the message of hope, I hope, for anybody who is feeling stuck. That was a long answer.
It's great. It's a fantastic answer. Fantastic answer. John, you're sweet. You don't look a day over 29. That's right.
Oh, way to go. Way to go. I have a new grandbaby that says otherwise. So.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Fun to have family.
It is.
This concept of being stuck in a cycle, especially in marriage, what happens with that? What is this cycle of being stuck? How do we fall into it?
In the book, I talk about where the stuck gets started. And it is usually typically from childhood, from some experience or some relationship that left me with a misunderstanding of who I am, really. So I talk about it like a jersey that gets placed on us in childhood that tells us who we are, because children very early on come to understand what it takes to get along in the world. Like, I need to be the happy one, so mommy and daddy are happy. I need to be the smart one. I need to be, I need to please people all the time, what have you. So that childlike mindset becomes our identity of how we work in the world. And so if we carry that through to adulthood, we tend to find someone in the same level of functioning. So if I'm very insecure, I find somebody who maybe can like that insecurity in me, and it can become not a healthy relationship. And so the stuck part is we have knowledge perhaps that we're not happy with where we are, but not the awareness of where it started or how to unleash it and move forward.
Excellent. In the moving forward, now we've got this concept of, okay, here's my jersey. This is what I've identified with. Do you just sit them down and rip off that jersey? Like, what happened?
If only that were that easy, right?
Right.
And that's why the process took a long time to, actually work through with clients and see if it made a difference. And I think one of the keys, and it sounds so simple, but, a lot of clients would say, I know I just need to get over it, but I don't know how. I've read thousands of inspirational books. I've listened to sermons. I've, gone to therapy before, but I just can't quite get there. So for me, what I saw made the difference is the identification of how I'm feeling today, the behaviors I'm doing today, and the link to where it started. And there's almost a magic phrase that I say to people. So you're upset, or you're insecure, or you can't make decisions very well. You attract the wrong person. Well, let's look at where it started and go back and tag that. So you're insecure. You had a family life that taught you that you were not okay the way you were. And so you learned to carry that insecurity. You saw abuse in your home. You learned to carry that identity that I'm either need to abuse or be in an abused situation, perhaps, because that's what I've seen. So it becomes very important to realize, and the magic phrase, I need to get back to that, is no wonder. Well, no wonder you have this experience today because you had that experience yesterday. You make sense is the other part of it. You're not crazy. It's something I love to say to people, and they go, oh, really? Because we all think that a little bit. If we are having difficulty, we know we want to do something, but we're incapable of actually carrying it through.
Wow. That must be really freeing to have an agreement with someone to say you are not crazy, and using that term, because our minds are brilliant, but they can be brilliant also in recycling up the old stuff and just keep rehashing it over and over again.
Absolutely.
And when we get out of our head and speak and write, there's something in that concrete form that allows us to suddenly hear it. Now, we're hearing it all the time within our mind, but when we hear it from the outside coming back, wow, does it sound different. It sounds very, very different. Michael says, do you find people who have been sexually abused as children who are stuck since their brains have been reconfigured due to the trauma that they have the most issue trying to get over things? Fantastic question, John.
Such a good question. And I love the concept of, the understanding that it is a trauma to the brain, and it has changed the brain. Yes, they potentially have more to get over, because when there's trauma, we disassociate sometimes from that, or the brain covers the things that our childlike mind is unable to understand or comprehend or carry. And so at some point, you don't necessarily even realize that you were in or can't identify the abusive situation because you have not been able to see it because you were dissociated from it. So even to recognize that was abuse, I've had so many clients that I've had to say that was abuse because they're not carrying it as such. They're carrying it with the guilt of I did that, or I made that gesture, or I enjoyed some physiological response to it. Makes them feel like they somehow own that. So very important to help, again, tie the no wonder, you make sense. This happened to you. You were a child. You were not capable of doing anything to stop it. However, today you are. So the O is objectifying. Like April, like you said, getting it out there in written form is the best. V is validating and verifying the emotional response to the thing. And the O and the V are the toughest part to get a client, especially someone who's had trauma as a child, to understand and to do, because they don't necessarily feel like sometimes they want to look at it. It's too painful, that they can get away from it. and then the feelings somehow maybe aren't valid because somebody else had it worse. I maybe deserved it, etc. So if we can get past the O and the V, the E is the hardest. The top of the E to the middle of the E, and it's all in the book. I know I'm giving you a lot of things here, but the bottom rung of the E, if we can get there, it's examining our options. And so many times victims don't recognize that they have options of how to deal with what happened, even 20, 30, 40 years later. So that is the breath that we can take. So if we can get past the OV, we get into the ER, which is conveniently where we go to get help.
Right. That wellness of the ER, that the emergency situation, the response that can happen there.
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
when you find clients coming in, how many do you see that are kind of in that emergency room situation? Is it a large number? Is it a place where you kind of have to help push them to? Like, what happens with this?
I think most of them who are stuck are still needing to go through the O and the V first. They have not been able to get even to the place where they can receive the help, because they're still behind that. It's so much easier to see in someone else, and help them and be objective about another person and not for ourselves. So once they get to the E and slide to the bottom of the E, then they can start to receive the help because they recognize they have options. And the R is the release. It's where we release. We hold on to something new, and we have to release the old in order to hold on to something new. Like a trapeze, grab that one, I have to let go, and then I can rebuild and renew. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. In rebuilding and in renewing, that's got to be, I'll just share this little part.
Mm-hmm.
That to me says the word dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was impossible. I had not dreamt for a long time. And I don't mean like sleeping with dreams.
Sure.
I mean like reaching for anything beyond the next hour.
Mm-hmm.
Because surviving, I was a pro at that. I mean, generationally, I was a professional at that. I have a fourth great grandmother who survived amazing things. And she was 5 years old at the time. She watched so many members of her family die on the frozen plains of Wyoming, trying to get to the place where they felt Zion was in Utah. Her mother, her father, big brothers, sisters, she and 3 of her younger siblings were all that were left. And there was such a pride and identification in that, I have to say, unfortunately and fortunately, because I felt like that was like this identity of I can survive anything. And I'll never forget a friend of mine saying, "Are you just tired of surviving? Don't you want to thrive?" And I had no concept of what that word was. And she asked me, if you could do anything, just say a dream. Nothing could come to my mind. Finally, something popped in, was like, I could go get some shoes for my son at Walmart. That's my dream. That was my dream. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
And so when you're helping people they've released, and now it's this blank canvas. And for myself, I'm like, oh, honey, I don't paint. I can't paint you anything on this blank canvas. There is nothing that's going to happen here. And it was terrifying. That part of the healing was probably, for me, that was the toughest part. I don't know if anyone else has that connection or similarity, but that dreaming idea, I had to force something and just write something down finally as a dream. And I was like, I guess that'll work. And it was a start, right? It was just a start. But yeah, I think John Michael says, thank you. Fantastic answer to give him that support. Great. John Michael is an amazing man. He, I don't know if you know much about his story, but he shares it in his TED Talk and in his books. He, as a youth, was an Olympic diver, like for the States, like amazing. But it was in the 1980s, and right in 1980 when they could not go to the summer games. And so he'd won this world championship. All of these things were happening and really tough stuff. And he's a man that has really come forward with a story that is part of what you're talking about in so many places. And to get through the trauma of sexual abuse into now living a life where you can understand now what's happened there, and you take the ownership of your healing to move past into these next pieces to help get over it, right?
Yes, yes.
Exactly.
Definitely. There's a quote I became acquainted with this weekend. Paul Dunn is his name. He said, when your vision is more powerful than your memory, your future is more powerful than your past. I've spoken to 5 clients about it already because it really encapsulates what we're talking about in being free to dream and to allow your future to have a future. Because so often when we're so tied to our past, it's reactively, we're still reactively living against it, which means we're in bondage to it still. So the idea of really getting over it is so important in the work that I do. I don't want to just slap a Band-Aid on it or give them, pat answers. I want to help them look to something new, take off the old jersey that they have identified with, and put on what they were designed for and find freedom.
John has a request.
Say it again.
Say that again. Please say that again.
Yes. When your vision is more powerful than your memory, your future is more powerful than your past. Incredible quote. Paul Dunn.
Yes, this concept idea that what we can have out here is truly it's what God has created in a vision for us. It's not that we just come up with something randomly. And that could be a start. But if you're really in tune and follow the things that he has out there and in place for you, then you step forward in these faithful moments that you could be terrified to do, but you keep moving forward. You start to see the ways, you start to see how things actually come to pass, and you start to see how, when you've let the other go, it really is that freeing part. And I think many of us hear pieces of this. We've had, in the backpack, all the rocks of your life, and you're trudging it around. When you can get rid of the rocks, you feel lighter. You put down the backpack and run free. There's so many ways to think about it. Yet why do we keep holding on to this, Sally? Why?
I think there's another important piece of this that I've come to understand cannot be glossed over. That's why I say the O and the V are the most difficult. And I think perhaps if I were to have to decide which is worse or harder, I think it's the V portion for many women, but I would say for men too, because we have a complicated relationship with emotions. I say that in the book that there are some who live in the emotions are everything camp, and then there's the emotions are nothing camp. And we don't quite know, depending on how we grew up, again, what was placed on the jersey about emotion. The top rung of the E is the interpretation of the emotion. So if I get to the O and I get to the V and I get through those and I come up to the top of the E and I say, well, I should really just be over this by now, or somebody else has it worse than I, or I shouldn't, anger is a sin. For whatever it is, what I do is I just diminish myself, my experience, and I start all over again. If I can even get back up. It's like push that ball back under the water, cope, and I make a distinction in the book between coping and dealing, because we cope by pushing it away and not looking at it, putting it somewhere that we think it's not going to bother us, but it's still there, and dealing with it. So I think emotional, the response to our emotions, those of us who learn to carry other people's emotions in abusive or addicted homes, we know how to manage people, but not our own emotions. Those that were told emotions are wrong, or we just don't express them in our home. So it's difficult for many people to get past the V part to the bottom of the E because of their interpretation of emotion and their fear of dealing with them if they have not ever done so. That's a sticking point that I see.
Yes, very much so. That sticking point is is there. John, I'm glad the wagon is slow for you. It's slow for me too. It's okay. It's all right? Exactly. We just have to do this. John's got another great question here. How much does fear of our social stigma plays in how we struggle to get over the O and the V? Hey, Sally, they're coming with some great questions. Guns loaded. I love it.
Just wonderful. Definitely plays a huge part. And I think fear is the device of the enemy. I'm a Christian person, and my belief is that fear is the number one weapon. Because if I look at it, physiologically, fear stifles. We go into fight or flight. So fear stifles our ability to think clearly, to relate well to others, to move into action. And there's a quote in the book. I'm trying to see if I have it right here. Bessel van der Kolk is a foremost, writer on brain work, but he talks about action being the necessary step to take back, your power and create healing from trauma, brain trauma especially. So when we are not able to because fear is on us, that is a very important part. And stigma of, well, that happened a long time ago, or I don't want to come out and say that, especially for a man. I think it's especially difficult to come out and talk about that. It's difficult for everyone. But I think those are two of the powerful reasons we stay stuck in that OV cycle. I do in the book talk about trauma, because I struggled. I worked with so many and several very traumatized clients, just very clinically unable to do anything but live and rely on that old memory. And then I worked with some people who had quote unquote lesser traumas. So I put the definition of trauma in the book because the big definition that we tend to think of is this huge impacting and life altering experience that we think of for abuse, or we think of for addiction, etc. Some crime or war or something like that. But the second definition of trauma is an emotional upset. And I thought that was important for people to realize that trauma at any level can make you stuck, and trauma at any level can make you ashamed, based on what you're taught about emotion and your response to it. So great question. I think absolutely it does. It makes it harder. But again, if you have this process and you walk through it with someone, I just was able to walk through this book as a Bible study with my Bible study group of ladies, and just saw some remarkable, these ladies are in their 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s, some things that came out for walking through it together that they hadn't dealt with in 30 years or thought they could change. So I think it's possible. I know it's possible to get to the other side.
Wow, getting through to the other side is
Mm-hmm.
definitely possible.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us on the healing journey, we find ourselves going and then maybe sitting and resting a while, and then getting back up and going again, and then sitting, sometimes even going backwards a little bit, and then remembering, oh, that's the direction, go this way, and that's okay. It is part of the messy, sticky journey. And
Right.
I think more are accepting that. And I think the concept of perfection is being dropped even more and more. And at least I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I know a huge point of a red flag, which, look how this ties in. Anyone that is in perfection is really about control and power, because they have to know what's going to be happening next and next and next. So they control their environment into a place of absolute perfection. And so when you look at others that are in perfection, we are, oh, I wish we could be like that, and striving after something. It's fake. No one can ever be perfect. And if they are showing that side of perfection,
right,
run the other way, because it is not real. It is not real. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So,
and I would say, don't get me wrong, there is no perfect, the point is not to get over it and be done perfectly and, oh, good, now we're done. It's to learn the process, so that whatever comes your way, you can just kind of walk through what happened, how do I feel about it, embrace that this is just my feeling. It doesn't have to own me or be my life. Examine my options and move to release, rebuild, and renew.
Right. And that process is a skill set. So you're teaching us a skill set to keep going over. I think that's really, really important of what you said, is that this process, this idea of learning the skill set, is going to help us throughout our lives, because heck, tomorrow there'll be another experience. There'll be another trial. There'll be another challenge.
Right.
And so when we know how to, okay, wait, recognize, okay, I can see this is happening again, and applying those skill sets, it's really, really important. I love it. John asks another great question. How can we help partners and supporters understand that the victim's mind do not function as the normal way of healing? I think we forget to help those who are supporting victims.
Such an important point. And I do like to work, if one of the partners is, in that situation, I do like to work with both of them so that they can kind of have an understanding of the aha moment of, well, no wonder. And I can be a part of this. I don't have to be, because I think so many partners, feel the weight of, I have to make this better for you somehow, or I have to, deal with it. And I don't know what to do when they're upset or they're lashing out at me. I've had, I'm working with a couple right now where he's just been diagnosed with bipolar disease and has some acting out in the manic is just the most hurtful thing that happens to her because it involves a sexual addiction. And so just walking with them together to find the healing together, that it will not be one and then the other just kind of lags on the outside, but giving the support person the tools to, number one, again, this is what happened. My husband was just diagnosed. How do I feel about it? I feel devastated. I feel scared. I feel upset. I feel mad. I feel all those feelings are valid. No wonder you feel that way, because when he's in manic, he acts this way and, devastating to a woman. What are my options? We get down to what are my options? Well, I could leave. We have to examine our options to know we have freedom to then choose. So once we know all the options, then we can choose. So I may not like the options, but once I recognize there's some black and white ones probably, but then a lot of gray in the middle. So then now she's choosing to see his, manic phase and choosing to be a party to it, knowing that she at some point could leave. She doesn't want to, but now she's choosing instead of have to. So that's just a weight that's lifted. It's a power position to be in. And then she can release a little bit better the personal feelings of, what do I do? Why do I deserve this? So that's just one example of working, but it is very important to equip the support people as well. And be partners.
Exactly. Being in that connected partnership. It is about this communication, the relationship, the understanding in so many ways. So great. John says progress over perfection. And so it looks like you are hitting great points coming here, and choosing definitely gives us the power back. Agreed, Michael. Agreed. That understanding that we can have some position of power and understanding within our lives to draw a boundary, to say, nope, that's not okay, or nope, I'm not going to accept that part. And those things are really, they're freeing because we have it drawn there. And then we can go through the OVER again, examine things through, and know what's going to be happening on the other side, meaning we can get through it. We got through this one. We can get through this. Again, learning the skill set and moving things forward. So beautiful.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. These have been fantastic questions through the evening.
Yes.
Thank you, John Michael. Thank you, John. Thank you, Sophie, for being here as well. Thank you so much. So, Sally, where can we get this book? Get Over It.
Anywhere books are sold, that phrase, that fun phrase, Amazon, obviously. And I would just love to have you have the opportunity to work through stuff and have something to help you as a guide.
Excellent. As a guide. Wonderful. And I understand that your audiobooks can be coming out pretty soon.
Yes, with the help of a wonderful team at Jukebox Audio. Is that what it's called? Jukebox?
Jukebox Sound, yeah.
Yes. Very helpful. So very soon, probably, hopefully, maybe it goes up this week. And I understand that it could then be ready within 30 days at some point.
Wow. So. Great. This is a fantastic thing. So another opportunity, if you're on the run and can't get the reading done, you can be listening to it and, following through on all of that. Thank you so much, Sally. Would you like to kind of send us out with something of your final words for the evening and to share this light with everyone?
I think just I would love to say that it's time to understand that you can get unstuck. You can move through anything that you have dealt with. You can break free and live in the freedom, life to the full, as John 10:10 tells us that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but do not fear. He's come to give us life and life to the full. So that's my desire for all of you, is to not just live, as April you said, not just survive, but thrive.
Right. Thrive. Everyone, thank you so much for popping in here tonight. It's been a fantastic evening, and one where I can feel kind of a gentle calm after possibly some storms. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you soon. Bye, everyone.